And hello, Steve. How you
How's
doing?
it going? I'm doing fantastic. I felt like the last day of school today with training camp wrapping up.
Yeah, it really did. We didn't get any parting gifts though. Maybe I think Sunday's going to be the field day, and maybe they'll give us some parting gifts then. But yeah, it was very anticlimactic final day of Saints practice for training camp, but that did wrap up today.
It was good to see more of our boy Jameis Winston doing well. Really, the knee and the foot doesn't
Yeah,
look like there's any issues.
yeah. Yeah. We're gonna get into a lot of that. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. We're about to record today's episode of Inside Black and Gold. We're just gonna kind of talk for a couple minutes and let some folks find us. But before we get into it, just so you know, we're gonna kind of give you the latest on Jameis Winston. We're going to do kind of a Saints fantasy football stock watch to kind of see where some of these Saints players are getting drafted and whether we think there's, some extra value in some of them that you might not be getting taken advantage of. And we're going to go through a lot of that. And then we're going to pick our spotlight players for Friday's preseason game, just like we did last week. And we already have those sorted out. So in a couple minutes, we'll go live here. If you have any questions, comments, throw them in the chat. And we'll see if we can get to them as we go. But yeah, Steve, have you been watching She-Hulk? That's the question for the day.
There's only one episode, right?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
was there another?
There's one.
Yeah, so I saw the first episode, and I actually, I like the fact that it was kind of silly and more comic booky because all these serious Marvel movies are getting way overblown and way too long. Been loving the stuff really Disney Plus has been putting out.
Yeah, the animation is a lot. I don't know. I almost wish it was just a fully animated series because there's just so much CGI that it's like, I don't know. I have a hard time getting into it. Like when there's only one of them, it's like, okay, like you can kind of accept it. When there's two of them, you enter like uncanny valley territory where it's like, this isn't real, but it's in real. Like, I don't know. That's the only thing I didn't like about it.
Yeah, I'm questioning how much, Mark Ruffalo is going to be in the series, or that was just really the first episode kind of thing.
Fark Muffalo?
Yeah, him.
Fark Muffalo. Okay, anyway, we are not only going to be talking about Marvel series here. We're going to get into this. And so, yeah, like we said, we're going to get into Jameis Winston first. So whenever you are ready, Steve, do you want to kind of kick us off here and introduce the episode?
Welcome in, Saints fans, inside Black and Gold.
Energy, Steve. I need energy.
I'm coming off that post-practice low. Let me get into it here.
I'm tired too. I'm like monotonous AF.
I'm still trying to catch up from Green Bay too. I know that sounds lame, but getting back into the flow of things. It'll be good to have a day off tomorrow. I know that's people don't want to hear that. Welcome inside Black and Gold, Saints fans. I'm Steve Geller along with Jeff Nowak bringing you another edition. And we just wrapped up another training camp practice as this team heads into their preseason finale against the Los Angeles Chargers. Jeff, we've been seeing a lot of good things, a lot of interesting details about this team heading into this finale, and was good to see the main man, quarterback number one, really showcasing his feet, I guess you would say, in the last two practices.
Yeah, Jameis Winston, it was fair to be a little concerned about the foot injury that kept him out, at least a week, maybe a little bit more. He didn't participate in the Packers practices beyond a couple drills. He didn't play in the second preseason game, but he got back on Sunday, started kind of getting back into drills. He's got into the full team drills. Yes, he's been in the full team drills for the past 3 days in a row. Doesn't seem to be having any issues. He's moving fine. And now, so the question becomes not can he play in Friday's preseason game because he is apparently healthy enough to do it. The question is, will he play in Friday's preseason game. And
Couldn't
I
care.
still don't know for sure whether he's going to or not.
Yeah, of course, when asked about it today, he said he wants to, but what's a player gonna say? Is someone gonna say, "Nah, I'm gonna sit this one out, dog.
Yeah,
I
so
don't want to."
this is what Dennis Allen had to say when we asked him.
I'm not telling anybody who's playing and who's not playing, but yeah, look, I think the last couple of days he's looked pretty good out here, which has been really encouraging.
So the answer is, I'm not going to tell you. Na, 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 na.
Exactly. I know, and you don't.
Right. He's not going to tell us. So fine. I'd rather someone tell you they're not going to tell you than like lie to you. So I guess that's preferable. But we don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. You can argue honestly either way. I think too, because one, you are worried about your number one guy possibly suffering either a setback or an injury, but then again, why wouldn't you want to get him out there for a series? I'm not saying it's going to really even make that big of a difference come week one, but just to quote unquote knock some of that rust off and get in a real game situation.
I just don't see why you wouldn't just say yes or no. Like I get if you want to play coy in the regular season and you want to be like, oh, we're gonna make him have to wonder until late in the week. This is preseason. Just tell us. It's
Right,
not gonna hurt anybody.
The
Jameis
Chargers
should know.
aren't game planning for a quarterback right now.
Right, no one's game planning for anything. They're just going out there and trying not to get hurt. Just tell us who's gonna be there. Let's make our jobs easier. But I think he's just kind of setting the precedent for later in the season when we ask him these similar questions, we should expect the same answers. I think that's kind of what he's trying to do with that type of answer. But I've said this a few times. Go ahead.
I was going to say, have you noticed too, the past two practices afterwards, Coach Dennis Allen's kind of poking Bobby Hebert a little bit. And I feel like because Hebert's been very vocal about that, he feels Jameis needs to play in this game because the last time he got hit was that game on Halloween last year. And he needs to get that feel of a pass rush, that timing back in his head, and also the feel of what it is to take a hit again as a quarterback, because that's not happening in practice, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether that's. I mean, I've never taken a hit in a game, so I can't speak from experience. Bobby would be able to say better than I ever could. But yeah, I think that's definitely something. Like, I think that just getting hit is probably more important than anything else. Like being willing to get hit and go down and not be afraid you're going to mess up that knee even worse, because like I said, it has been, 10 months since that last hit. But one thing I've been saying pretty consistently and I've been confident about is, Jameis, if you ask him at any point, he will say, I want to play. Like, it's never, I don't really need to play. He's going to be like, I will play every snap of that preseason game if you let me. And sometimes you just have to protect him from himself. But, in case you're wondering whether that was just me making that up, here's what he said today.
Jameis, do you need to play Friday?
I would love to. I would love to play. Just in terms of like to get out there with the bullets are really flying and get out there and compete with the guys. I love the pregame experience just to get a chance to look in everybody's eyes, dap people up, and really get that whole holistic team bonding part in the beginning of the game. That's one of my favorite parts of football. Is just that pre-battle moment. So I would love to experience that before we really kick things off.
You'll be fine with not playing Friday. If the first time you got an opportunity, it's that first game in Atlanta. Will you be fine if you don't play Friday?
Well, I'm going to do my best to be prepared regardless. Whatever the head coach decides, I'm going to be ready to play. I'm definitely going to be ready to go. In regards to your question, my foot is literally getting better every single day. And it's not like a major injury. It's just in terms of overcompensating because I got the knee, and we don't want anything else to spring up just from me, using one side more.
Yeah, so there you have it. He wants to play. He wants to be out there. He's not even talking about like, oh, I want some reps to get execution down. I want to get hit to kind of get that comfortability. He's saying, I want to be in the pregame huddle. That's my favorite part. And
He's got to watch out about saying the bullets flying when you're in New Orleans.
Okay. Let's keep this about football, Steve.
Heyo.
Kyle Brister over here saying if DA isn't saying Jameis is playing, then Jameis isn't playing. I don't think that's true. I think Jameis is going to play. That's kind of what we're getting into. I think that if Jameis is healthy and Jameis wants to go, which he does, then they're going to have a hard time saying, no, Jameis, you can't even get a series. We don't trust your own health. Quarterbacks, if he's a running back, like Alvin Kamara, I don't think you should send out there. Demario Davis, I don't think you should send out there. But a quarterback isn't taking huge hits. It's more about just getting the feel of it. And I think he's going to be out there for the most minimal amount of snaps that you can justifiably have him out there. Because he wants it, and I think he's healthy, and I think it's going to do good for the team to see their quarterback kind of in the game. That's how I feel about it. But I think this is Dennis saying, I'm going to flash this comment back up. So if DA isn't saying Jameis is playing, then Jameis isn't playing. I disagree with that because previously he had told us he was not playing, right? In previous instances, he would have been like, yeah, he's not out there. Today, right. He played coy. And so to me, that actually indicates that he is a lot closer to playing, because if he wasn't, then he has a track record of just saying, yeah, he's not going to be out there. So I think this is actually backwards.
Yeah, I think that too, they're going to probably talk about it a lot today and tomorrow, see how Jameis is feeling with his foot. I know we saw him running around a lot, even saw him, sliding today. There was a comments about him going back to his old baseball days and having to practice that as well. And there was all positive signs, and the way we saw what we saw him doing and how he was moving around, there definitely looks to be no ill effects like from the knee, from the foot. And if that's the case, why not put him in for a series? And I know some folks are like, oh, A-Bear just wants to see Winston get hurt so Dalton can come in as a starter. And that's so furthest from the truth. It's not true. Please. He wants nothing but the best for Jameis Winston and this team. Bobby is obviously a huge fan of Andy Dalton, who thinks he can come in and provide that same level of quarterbacking that Winston can if he can't go on, kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think Bobby's wishing evil on anybody. I do think that he's a big fan of Andy Dalton, so I don't think that can be argued. But no, I think Bobby just wants this team to win.
Right, exactly.
He cares about this team winning way more than anyone else I know. Like, he really genuinely cares.
I think early on in camp we did see Jameis kind of behind Dalton a bit. For a guy like Dalton to be just getting acclimated to this offense, he just looked really comfortable and confident. And I think Jameis was in that point where he was still kind of feeling his way back with the brace on and getting used to running around with that. And there were some struggles at times, but he's definitely, I feel, come on a lot stronger these past few practices.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was ever necessarily behind. I think he was just a guy who was, getting his feet under him. But I never saw it ever as, okay, Andy might be the starter. That was never the case. And no one on this team ever thought it was the case. So let's we can just dump that there. One thing I wanted to ask Cam Jordan, who we talked to about today, was kind of, whether, so in the media, we make this big deal about preseason reps, blah, blah, blah. But so I wanted to hear from him whether that was just the media making a big deal about things and the players really don't see it the same way. And so here's what he had to say, which includes him giving me a bit of a hard time as I tried to ask him the question, which I think he agrees with in the end, but he confused me in the moment. So let's see how y'all hear it. A lot is made of like first team reps and preseason games as a veteran player.
From who?
Well, it's always talked about in the preseason.
From who?
Well, the media. Right.
There we go.
Right. Well, that's my point. That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
As a veteran player, is getting one series in a preseason game, does that really make a difference to you, or is it?
Sure, it does.
Like, okay. Well,
For the media.
what is the difference? How does it work for you?
I think it lets the media know what the one's going to look like. Honestly, when it comes down to it, I've seen players come in week 1 and be starters for a team. I've seen them come in week 4 be starters for a team. When your name is called, it doesn't matter what your state is. If you're physically able and mentally willing, let's go get it. I'm more excited about week 1 because I get to see guys flying around with live bullets. I can always speculate how well we do in practice because I think we look great in practice. I think we look phenomenal in practice. But anybody who's watched any football has been like, you guys look great in practice and get to a game and lay eggs. We're not, we're focused on being the best prepared that we can be for week 1.
Yeah. So I think what Cam was saying is, it is a big deal to the media, and that's really the biggest, the biggest area where people seem to care about preseason reps. You'd have to, I tried. I think that's what he was saying. It's very confusing when he tries to.
Well, then when he finally did answer, and he was like, "Sure, it does," and then he kind of owned it real quickly because to the media. So,
right. And when I was asking the question in real time, I didn't hear him say to the media under his breath. So I was like, "Oh, okay, so it does matter." And then it was. I was very confused in real time, but I think we've gotten to the bottom of it. Cam is not concerned about playing a snap on Friday. I think he would if it was asked of him, but I think Cam, Kamara, DeMario. These are all guys who they might get out there, they might dress, but I would be surprised if they do. But I think you're going to see a good number of first teamers out there. I don't think you're going to see James Hurst. I don't think you're going to see Marshawn Lattimore. I don't think you're going to see who was it?
Definitely not Pete Werner.
Pete Werner, that's the other one. Yeah, none of them participated in practice today, and I don't think that that's an indicator that you're going to be active on Friday. But I think anyone who was active in practice today, outside of Kamara, has a chance to play on Friday.
Yeah, to me, I would even put maybe even Tyrann Mathieu in that mix. And I don't know if they'll put Marcus May, honestly, out there either in the last preseason game. But there's definitely no questions. I think you're spot on with definitely the big three of Kamara, DeMario, Cam Jordan. There's nothing else you need to see from any of those guys.
Yeah, I think we probably will see Marcus May. And I would say they would have motivation to get Tyrann out there just because like you haven't seen these guys play in a game, and I think the reps are actually valuable for them. And so if it's a question of, we don't want to run them out there and get them hurt in reps that don't matter, I think that the equation is different for them because those reps, I think, will be good long-term if you can just get some live game speed action going. But we'll see. I mean, there's also stuff you want to see from Justin Evans and some of the other safeties. So I don't think it would hurt anybody if they didn't play. But I just don't want to see them come out week 1 rusty because no one's seen action. But Cam makes it sound like that's not something they're worried about.
Chris Sanders there asking, will we see Mark? I'm assuming he means Mark Ingram, obviously. And I think we will see Mark getting some run on Friday. Probably you're going to be your number one, quote unquote, with the first team running backs.
So the reason I think, so if you play Jameis, like if you have Jameis out there,
yeah,
you want to have a first team running back out there because you want to have, your best protector out there. And I think that's who you trust the most in like blitz protection, right? You don't want to put Jameis out there and put Abram Smith next to him. And no disrespect to Abram Smith, but trusting a rookie to protect your star quarterback is not, the ideal scenario. So I think that's why if you see Jameis, you will also see Mark. If you don't see Jameis, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see Mark. But yeah, I think that's kind of where you're drawing that line with him. But I just don't see any benefit to putting AK out there. I really don't.
No, and I think we've been talking about that probably since the middle of camp. It was even then. It's like I've seen enough. He's displayed, that speed, that quickness, the cutting ability, the vision. He just looks like your best offensive weapon, which he is.
Yes, this is true. Speaking of offensive weapons, the Saints have a good number of them, but I feel like they're not getting. Hold on. No, I don't even know what this is in reference to. Anyway, but yeah, speaking of weapons, the Saints have a lot of them, but I don't know if they're necessarily getting the credit in fantasy drafts. And so we're going to spend the next segment going through where Saints players are A, getting drafted, and B, where they're getting drafted is high or low compared to what we think they should be. So stick around for that. On Inside Black and Gold. Got to say the name.
Wherever you can download podcasts.
As far as we know.
Maybe, right.
Yep. All right. Yeah, and if anyone over here has already done their fantasy draft, tell us what Saints players you drafted and where you drafted them. Because I am curious. We did a 10-team, our listener league, and I ended up with Taysom Hill, and that might be it. That might be my only Saints player.
I didn't end up with a single Saint.
I got him in like the 12th round just because I just want to be able to tell ESPN they were dumb.
I thought that was quite amusing that their projection for Taysom, which I'm sure we'll get into, is
we're going to talk
hilarious.
about that. Yeah, nonsense, absolute malarkey.
That's definitely
I'm going to pull up our listener league.
That's a possible opening game against Atlanta stat line.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to pull up our listener league draft so I can kind of mention where they went in ours. Oh, I can't find it. Oh, that's the wrong email. I need my personal email. There it is.
So yeah, just one in the first round. That seems about right for me. Like
just one Saints player in the first round?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that if I'm able to get Alvin Kamara at the end of the first round, if I'm able to get because no, I don't see any Saints players in the first round.
Yeah, number 9.
Who?
Kamara.
I didn't see his ADP in the first round.
I'm just looking at our draft.
Oh, in our draft. Yeah, okay, yeah. In the listener league draft, Kamara went in the first round, and I think probably in a lot of other leagues you would end up seeing him go in the second round. But yeah, okay. Do you want to bring us back, Steve, or do you want me to?
Go for it. You do it this time.
Okay. I can do that. All right, guys. Yeah, and just a reminder, we're going to be talking about fantasy football. So if you got any Saints players in your fantasy football draft, if you've already done it, let us know where you got them and who they are, and we'll talk about it. But let's get into it. And we're back here on Inside Black and Gold. Make sure to mash that subscribe button wherever you get your podcast. Leave a rating, leave a review. 5 stars is appreciated, not required, but it kind of is required. So definitely do that. So in this segment, we're going to talk about Saints fantasy football and which Saints players are going as values at their current draft position. And we're going to get into this now because I think, generally speaking, a lot of fantasy drafts happen this weekend. I have one that's going to happen the first week of September. But I think this is kind of the sweet spot for drafting because you want to wait until the end of the preseason if you can, just in case someone tears their ACL and you don't want to have your first round pick get hurt before you ever get to watch them play a game. Because that has happened to me before. I can't remember who it was, but I drafted someone in the second round and they were done. Like I never even got to see him on the field.
Yeah, that's always a nightmare. I agree. You always want to wait to the second, third, or it was even the 4th preseason game at one point. But yeah, you're not waiting to see, oh my God, is this guy going to make the 53-man roster? You're not worried about that for fantasy football at all.
Yeah, no, you want to wait until the teams cut down their rosters and see where you are. But so that's what we're going to get into today. And so let's just kind of go through each player and their average draft position, and we'll kind of run this against what we saw in our listener league that we drafted for earlier in the week. So, Steve, the first player who will be drafted in every draft from the Saints is pretty obvious. It's Alvin Kamara. Where do you think his average draft position is?
I would put him still a top 10 person. So I'll say number 10. I know that there's the lingering concerns over his possible suspension, but the way things are looking right now, that's still getting pushed to the back burner. Maybe something could happen midseason, but to start the year at least, I'm pretty confident that he's going to be out there week 1. And from what we've seen in training camp, he's definitely looking like a guy that is going to shine on the field for you. You know what he's capable of. And I still think he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. So I do have him like around 9-10 in fantasy football overall.
So that's where you think he should be going.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, then, and this is kind of different because I think in New Orleans leagues, he will go earlier. In our listener league, he went at number 9, but his average draft position across all fantasy football leagues is 16.5.
Wow.
So if you're in a league that's not, all New Orleans people, right? That's obviously the caveat of, some of these differences.
Sure.
But if you're in a league, like I'm in a league with some people back in South Carolina where I used to live, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get him at 13, 14. And that's a steal in my opinion, because I still think that he's not going to get suspended this year.
Yeah, I was surprised actually he went even 9th in our local league.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what that number is baking in, the idea that he might miss 6 games. But so you're gambling, and it's not the worst gamble because I think that if he isn't suspended, he's going to end up being a top 3 running back. The downturn in his stats last season, I don't put that on him. I put that on an offense with no weapons. And, go look at the second half of that Seattle game and watch how they just bracketed him coming out of the backfield. That's what you saw from a lot of teams. And the one half that they really didn't do it, he had 10 catches. So that's where, I think you're going to have a much easier time with Michael Thomas, with Jarvis Landry, with Chris Olave. You're not going to be able to just double the running back. You're not going to be able to sit in single coverage on the outside and expect to win. So it's going to be a lot easier for Alvin to kind of make hay in the running game. So as long as he's out there, if he plays 14 plus games, I think you've stolen a top 5 pick in the second round. So I think I'm taking him if he gets beyond 10.
Yeah, and I think the big comparison would be Christian McCaffrey with folks for Alvin Kamara. And I'm seeing a lot of, overdrafting I'm feeling with him, with McCaffrey, just because of his injury history. And, he's going to get a heavy workload, obviously, there in Carolina, but can he stay on the field? And he just hasn't been able to do that over the past few years. But when he is, he's obviously very productive. I'm not knocking him as a player. I'm just saying I definitely worry more about him missing time than I would Alvin Kamara right now.
Right. I'd be more concerned about taking McCaffrey in the top 5 than I would be about taking Alvin in the top 12. Because, you're talking about maybe Alvin misses 6 games. Christian's track record is at least 6 games missed. He's played 10 games in the last 2 seasons. So, games missed are games missed, whether they're injuries or suspensions. And I don't see why you would feel way more confident about Christian McCaffrey's ability to play more than 12 games this season than you would Alvin's. So, take that for what it is. I think that 16.5, that average draft position is a steal. But we can move on to another really interesting player is Michael Thomas. Where would you guess? Where would you peg him if you were picking Michael Thomas? Where would you want him to be before you felt comfortable with it?
For me, I'd probably think either the 3rd or 4th round of a fantasy draft, and I'm thinking like a 10 to 12 team leagues. So anywhere from around 26 to 30 something, I guess, for Michael Thomas.
Well, 26 would feel really early because you're talking early 3rd round pick, and there's still some really, really, confident, players you can be really confident in. Whereas I think Mike, you still have some question marks about what his usage is going to be, and that's so second round, early third. That's tough. Like some of the early third round picks here, Saquon Barkley went 22.
Huh.
Like that's the type of player that you're getting. Keenan Allen was 23. AJ Brown was 40th. Terry McLaurin 42. Pat Mahomes was 43 in our listener league. So like you're still have really, really attractive names on the board. And this is a 10-team league, which makes it hard for me to swing Michael Thomas in the early third round. But his average draft position is 47.3. So that's in a 12-team league, that would be, late third. Yes, that's how the math works. Late third. And I think that's about right. I would take him as early as like 40. I think I was getting geared up to potentially take him in our league, and he went 38. So
yeah, that's a fair slot, I think, even for a New Orleans league. Even that's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, I was surprised people were that patient. They were patient on him. They were patient on Taysom Hill. But yeah, I think this is another situation where if you're drafting in New Orleans, you're going to have a hard time getting value out of Michael Thomas. Like if this is a New Orleans league, you're going to have a hard time getting value there. But I would be surprised if he goes before early fourth round in the league because the 2 QB league. So you end up with a lot of early quarterback picks. And so like in those leagues, you have a really good chance. If you're confident in Michael Thomas, go take a swing on him in the 35 to 40 range. And I think, that's fair. That's value. But I think
before the hamstring injury, he was getting a lot of pub and a lot of big, that we were all blowing him up at practice saying how good he looked and can't guard Mike is back. But maybe that hamstring tweak is kind of puts a damper on his progress.
No, but I think what you're describing is why local leagues are a lot harder to get him in, because we are hyping him up, and I think we all do feel pretty confident about his ability to get on the field and be effective. But I think from a national perspective, there's a negative perception of what this offense is going to do, which might be fair because we just haven't seen it. There's so many pieces of it we haven't seen, but I think that's why you're seeing these guys go a little lower than you might have expected. 16 is way too low for Kamara. If you can steal Michael Thomas, at 48, at the final pick of the fourth round of a 12-team league.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, that upside is really hard to pass up. Okay. So here's a good one though. Who do you think is next on the ADP list for the Saints?
I would guess it would be Jameis Winston at quarterback, just because of the value you have at the position.
Nope.
Olave?
Yep.
Okay.
Chris Olave is the third highest drafted Saints player by average draft position, and it's not high. There's a big drop off. His average draft position is 125.4. So that's, I mean, wow. I'd have to do the math here. Let's see. The 12-team league. You're talking 10th round. So you can get Chris Olave in the 10th round. I think that's probably right. I mean, I think you should be looking at Jarvis Landry a lot more closely, because Jarvis Landry is right behind him at like 160.
So you said 10th round for Olave?
Yeah. Actually, I'm sorry. Jarvis Landry is pretty low. 10th round. You could get Olave in the 10th round of most fantasy league drafts in a 12-team league.
Wow, that seems really low though to me as well, just from the fact that, obviously the Saints invested a lot in him. We've seen him thriving at camp. Got a little taste of the end zone last week, obviously preseason, but I would think he'd be higher than the 10th round. That seems really low to me. I would put him around the 6th or 7th round, I think.
I mean, in our 10-team league, he went in the 11th round.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think, I don't know. I think that's about right for a rookie wide receiver. But yeah, it's another situation where I think the addition of Jarvis Landry and the return of Michael Thomas is going to hurt his value in the eyes of people, and that's why he might be further down on the list. If we were not as confident in Michael Thomas, and it felt like, man, he's going to get peppered with targets all season long, I think that would be a lot higher, and so would Jarvis. But because of that scenario, it's a little tougher to trust. And again, we're talking about nationally, people don't trust Jameis. So
Definitely.
that kind of filters down to his receivers. And I think that's what you're seeing.
Did you say where Landry is compared to Olave yet or no?
So, yeah. So the next two are Jameis Winston and Jarvis Landry. Jameis is going off at the 158 mark. So Jameis, and at 158, you're flirting with not getting drafted at all in like a 10-team league. That's the 15th round. In a 12-team league, that's the 13th round. So Jameis and Jarvis could be had in the 13th round of your draft. In all drafts at the average draft position. Let's see where he went in our league.
For me there, I'm definitely a lot higher on Jarvis Landry as a fantasy player than Winston.
Yeah.
Just because of obviously track record with Landry and what we've seen in camp. Man, he's made some really impressive grabs and just exuding a ton of confidence right now, especially as we're wrapping things up. And I just think he's a steady target that you can rely on.
Yeah. So in our league, Jameis went 159 overall. So that's pretty spot on. What I think I said is his average draft position is 158.3. He went at 159 in our draft. So we nailed it. Christian took him with his last pick. But then, let's see where Jarvis went. I bet Jarvis went way higher. Yeah, Jarvis was the number 95 pick. So that might be the biggest Saints reach relative to like the average draft position because his ADP is 160 and he got taken by that guy who also took Josh Allen as his number 1 overall pick. He got taken number 95 overall, which is like the 9th round or the 10th round in our league. Yeah.
With Jarvis in a local league too, you got the Saints obvious connection and then also your LSU connection. So your ADP gets boosted up locally with when you're a Saint and a Tiger.
Yeah, but I will tell you, if you are a person who wants to reach for Michael Thomas, then you should reach for Jarvis Landry. You should make sure that you get Jarvis because while it might be tough to start both of them, if either of them misses a game, which I think it's fair to wonder about Mike Thomas missing games, Jarvis is all of a sudden a wide receiver 1. So I think I'm not a huge fan of handcuffs in fantasy. I think they just take up roster spots and you can usually stream a better option than the guy you have been wasting a roster spot on. I think in this case, just knowing what we know about Michael Thomas, if you have drafted Michael Thomas in the first 5 rounds, because his ADP is like end of the 5th round, then you should be reaching for Jarvis before pick like 110 because he will go eventually. And you just want to make sure that you have that handcuff because I think it's going to be important. And Chris Olave is not the handcuff. He will not be the handcuff of Michael Thomas.
I'm definitely a big more fan of the handcuff proponent when it comes to running backs. Just because, if I'm taking Alvin Kamara, I'm definitely going to find a way to add Ingram later on in the draft, just in case kind of thing. And I think that's just a good practice in general for backs, just because, it's a lot easier to spread around catches than it is carries.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always felt like it just seems like you can tend to stream guys better than I don't know if Mark Ingram is going to be worth starting, even if AK does miss time, just because you don't know how that's going to platoon behind him. But yeah, it's fair. I think with Kamara this year, for sure, if you're taking Kamara, you should be trying to get your hands on Mark Ingram because that at least shields you from the suspension.
Right.
Because you're not talking about missing one game where you can stream somebody and hope. You're talking about a third of the season. And so you can't just sit around and hope to stream enough guys. But in most cases, if you have a reasonably healthy running back and the backup isn't really that good, if it's not a guy who you would start, even if he was the starter, then don't waste a roster spot on handcuffs. But I think Ingram and Landry are important ones this year.
Curious with the ADP you're looking at after you have Mike Thomas, Landry, Olave. Who do they have as the next receiver for the Saints that would be drafted? Is it Hardy? Is it Callaway?
I mean, these are all undrafted guys at this point.
Gotcha.
Once you get to like 200, you're in the final round.
Right.
And then the rest, like you'll get an average draft position, but we don't need to worry about the 40 round draft leagues that have way too much free time, But okay, so just a question: who would you guess is the next Saints fantasy player, Saints fantasy pick in ADP?
We haven't talked tight end yet, so I'm going to say Taysom over Troutman.
No,
and
it's going to be a tough. It's going to. I'm sorry, what?
Is it Troutman then or no?
No, it's the defense.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. The defense is 191. I think they're probably being underdrafted. I think that's another example of, if you're able to get your hands on a defense, I still don't think you should be picking a defense before like the 15th round, right? Before like the second to last round, your last two picks should be defense and kicker. But I do think that there is some value in making that your 14th round pick. Like everyone's going to be going after a defense in that second to last round, and then they're going to be going for a kicker in the last round. So one thing I like to do, so if it's a 16 round draft, one thing I like to do is, okay, I'm not waiting. I'm taking the defense I want in the 13th round. Right.
Well, I think too in leagues, obviously someone's going to take that Bills defense probably early, and then it creates a run of teams.
Yeah, you'll see a couple defenses go early, but you shouldn't get sucked into that. But I do want to pick the defense I like out of the teams that are remaining. So if there's 3 defenses gone, I still want to be able to pick who I think is going to be the 4th or 5th best defense. And by doing that one round early, right, you're avoiding the rush at the end. So you can pick your defense, and then the next round you pick the kicker you want, and then in the final round you just pick whatever best position player you can pick. I got Mecole Hardman in my final pick in our league, and I think that's like, if you really want to get your hands on the Saints defense, that's the strategy I would go with, is wait until the third to last round and take the Saints if they're still on the table, which they probably won't be in a New Orleans league.
Not a New Orleans league, right? Exactly.
But that's usually how I end up getting the defense I want.
Yeah, and that's one thing I love streaming defenses week to week, looking at the matchups, especially, you go in ahead of time and you see, you're in week 1, who is so-and-so playing next week, and you pick them up, stash them on your bench the prior week heading into that matchup. That's the biggest one for me. If, I know a lot of folks stream kickers and all too, but defense is a big one. I think I even named my team streaming defenses one year.
Yeah, I can't even. Well, I think I named my team D's Lutz. But yeah, and the thing is, that's a great
fantasy guy too this year.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Lutz is a great fantasy pickup this year too, because he's looked healthy, and I don't know if the national rankings are going to be so high on him.
No, people are going to forget about him. He's a kicker playing in New Orleans. I think we know how good he is, but why would anyone outside of this market know how good he is, right? So I think he's a guy you might be able to steal in the last round, when in reality, there's always people who reach for kickers. And I put him right behind Justin Tucker in terms of reliability when he's healthy.
Yeah, he might get a little bit of push or buzz because hitting that 59-yarder everybody saw in that Green Bay game. So
that's true.
That'll boost his fantasy stock for sure.
Yeah, he hit a 59-yarder outdoors.
Exactly.
That's impressive. He did have the wind helping him, but like that's how it works.
It wasn't a significant win, sure, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. But like you're going to have the wind on your side when you try to kick a 59-yard field goal. You wouldn't be trying a 59-yarder if the wind was blowing in your face. But yeah, no, like, and he's a guy I got in the second to last round because, like I said, I want to be able to get that pick in before the people who are drafting the correct way. So I'm just taking advantage of people being smart by kind of being a jerk. But I think that's what you have to do with fantasy football. That's kind of the deal. Okay, so the next few, the defense, Will Lutz is up there. Adam Troutman is the next one with an actual ADP. He's going right at the tail end of drafts, which I think is wrong. I think if you're trying to pick a Saints tight end that might have a season, that will get you, at least a fantasy relevant season, you should be going for Taysom. And we can talk about this. One of the reasons he's going so low in drafts, especially ESPN drafts, which is where we did this league, is they have him projected for 7 catches and 77 yards the entire season. The entire season. 7 catches for 77 yards. I would bet on him doing that in at least one game individually.
Yeah, I joked with you week 1 against Atlanta. That's a possibility.
Right. Well, that's just a wild thing to me. Like, so, this is a guy who, sure, you might not want him as your top tight end. Like, I took Travis Kelce early because the draft is going weird, and I just wanted to make sure I got the top option at tight end, and I got him in like the 3rd round, which is way earlier than I like to go at tight end. But I've always been like, if you're going to take a tight end early, it has to be the best one, or like the top 3, one of the top 3, because beyond that, it's a huge drop off. So like, I wanted kind of a low end kind of shot play at tight end behind Travis Kelce, just in case he misses a game and I have someone I can plug in, because Taysom is going to score touchdowns. Y'all, he's going to score touchdowns, whether he gets the yardage, whether he gets, he might get 40, 50 receptions. He's going to score touchdowns. He's going to vulture him like an animal. And he might be, if I had to bet on this really weird statistic that I'm going to make up right now, of all the undrafted players in leagues, like a guy who is being undrafted or is owned in like less than 50% of leagues, he is going to finish the season with the most touchdowns by far of any of them, because I could see him scoring 10, 12 touchdowns under the right circumstances. And that's a fantasy dynamo.
Yeah, I think you could describe maybe Taysom as like the, people say the punt god for whoever. I would have him as my flex god, because you're going to have him tight end, wide receiver, running back, even special teams. If your league is going to count yardage for that, he might end up contributing there as well. Block punts, maybe. I don't even know if our league has that into like anything accounted for statistics, but there's just so many options for him to be able to give you any points for doing yardage, scoring. I'm very curious to see exactly what he's going to do, obviously, with this team this year, but I just feel that he's a guy that you can plug in anywhere on the field, and he's going to give you a great amount of versatility for fantasy football, just all around. And even if it's not tight end, like I said, wide receiver and running back, when they get that down to the goal line, they're going to use him. I would assume still at quarterback in that run pass option.
Yeah,
run up the middle.
The fact is, he's gonna get touches. Like, that's honestly the thing that annoys me about the ESPN projection is, like, we can project that he's not going to be effective, and maybe he's not going to take advantage of his role this year. And at this time next year, we're like, well, that was fun, but it didn't work out. There's no scenario where he just is not part of the offense this year. So, that's the part of it that doesn't make any sense at all. If his projection on the low end should be 25 catches, 20 rushes, 4 or 5 touchdowns, maybe 800 total yards. 800 might be high, maybe like 600 total yards. That should be his low end projection. And that's if everything doesn't work out, if he gets hurt, if he misses a couple games. So like, he's a guy who at the tight end position where your options down toward the end of the draft are just awful.
Very slim, right?
That's
like my weakest. It always seems to be my weakest position. That's why I ended up, I think, round 5. I grabbed Kittle this year, and I'm just hoping he stays healthy, because I've had terrible luck in the years with tight ends.
Yeah, it's everyone's weakest position outside of like the top 3 tight ends in the league, because there's just not that many of them. And like the only really consistent one has been Travis Kelce, because he's just been healthy for 6 straight years. And then like Zach Ertz was up there for a while, but he's fallen off. But yeah, I think that Taysom has a chance to be a top 10 tight end, just because the position is so top heavy and depleted once you get past the top 4. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah. Plus, I totally agree with you there, just because too, like I said, it's like he's more than just a tight end as well. And you're going to get the numbers from that along with, everything when he lines up at tight end, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, and special teams too. I'm just all around guy that what round you got him in our league? Late, huh?
Pretty. I mean, it was double digits. I probably took him earlier than I had to, but someone was asking about him in the chat, and they couldn't find him because they spelled his name wrong. And so I made sure to get him. Got him in the 12th round.
Yeah, that to me is a nice bargain and great value for you. Someone that that you can every game too, whatever the matchup is, you're going to get something out of Taysom on a game day.
Right, and the reason I took him there was because my next pick was my second quarterback, because I have Trey Lance as my starter, and I wanted to make sure I had another guy. Then I took, like I said, I took Will Lutz, I took the Colts defense, and then I took Mecole with my last pick. So like that was my last. I don't really care. Like I don't have a thing that I need to take with this pick.
Yeah,
and I knew he wasn't going to make it to the final pick, so that's where I felt like I needed to take him. But yeah, I just wanted to have one Saints player on my team because he's I have two now, but yeah, I wanted to have one Saints position player on my team just in case,
It's nice to root for the home team, obviously. Yeah. Now, how far is Troutman behind Hill in the tight end rankings?
Well, Taysom is actually behind Troutman in the actual rankings.
Wow.
And I don't think Adam Troutman went in our league. Didn't. Adam Troutman went undrafted in this New Orleans-based fantasy league.
That's a big wow.
And I think it's fair because I don't think he's going to do anything. I think he might be a productive tight end. I think he might be a valuable guy, but I still don't think he's going to be a fantasy relevant guy because Taysom's going to vulture his touchdowns.
I don't know. Like you look at the tight ends over the years, where would you put maybe like Troutman's production? I might even say like a below Ben Watson even kind of thing.
Yeah, he's been a Josh Hill. That's who he's been, is Josh Hill to this point, and that's not exactly the exciting answer you wanted. But if Josh Hill was a good player, he stuck around for a long time, that he had value, and so the question I have is, can Troutman stay healthy? And right now it's looking like the answer is no. And so if that's the case, then that's even a more reason to feel confident about Taysom, because Trout, his role is blocking is important, but he also gets a lot of the routes, and you're not going to replace him with Vinette. I don't think Jawan is the guy you're going to trust in those kind of early down roles. So I think that's even more room for Taysom to grow. So I think Taysom, if you are looking for a Saints player that you can grab in the final 3 rounds of your draft and has a chance to well exceed his projections, even
Taysom's the guy.
Reasonable projections, it's Taysom.
Totally agree on that.
Okay, I think that's good enough there. But yeah, like we said, a lot of these Saints players are going really low, generally speaking. So if you want them, they're there to have. But
which is kind of funny because over the years, obviously the Saints offense so highly touted, but you had Drew Brees, and then the big question was, well, Drew spreads it around so much. Who else should you get?
Yeah, and now it's Jameis, who know what he trusts, so you can steal some of these players, and they might have a point, because even if this team plays well, I don't know if it's going to be an offensive juggernaut, just because it doesn't have to be. If you're winning games 25-0, you're dominating those games, you're not putting up a ton of fantasy points.
But this offense is not going to be last in passing yards per game this year, kind of thing.
No, but I also think, like, in an ideal scenario where you're winning games the way you want to win them, you are not in high-scoring games, so you're not in games where you can support, 5 viable fantasy starters. So I think that's fair. I think Alvin Kamara is insulated from that completely because he's going to be kind of a set it and forget it player. But everyone behind him, I can understand some of the concern over a lack of usage.
Yeah, I get you. And yeah, if I had to have one Saint, obviously it's going to be Alvin Kamara. And then after that, it's the defense. So I totally get it. And then it would probably be, I'm looking at Will Lutz, honestly, because I know you're going to have consistency there. He plays for the most part indoors. Later on in the season, we got some potential bad weather games, obviously in Philly and Cleveland there late in the season. But the offensive numbers for this team are going to be drastically improved from a year ago. One, all the injuries, two, the inconsistencies along the offensive line, the quarterbacking. We can go on and on with that. I'm not completely sold, obviously, on Jameis either as a top tier option at quarterback for fantasy wise.
Well, I mean, again, this is a New Orleans league, and he was went in the final round as a backup. So I think that the question about what he can do from a fantasy perspective is reasonable, and we'll have to see. But okay, I think that's enough fantasy. Let's get back to reality. We're going to close out with our spotlight players for Friday's matchup against the Chargers. We've already picked them out. We're ready to go, and then we'll get into a couple viewer questions if we have time in the back end of that. But stick around here on Inside Black and Gold and make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Okay. So a couple questions here that I want to answer. Brian Cavett, so he's talking about Jordan Jackson. We haven't really seen a ton from Jordan Jackson. I think he's been solid, not spectacular. I think he's a practice squad guy. The question is, by the way, why are you going live at the same time as Bobby and K-Dog? I can multitask, but I'd rather not. Well, it's partially because this is a podcast and we just need to record it and then we post it. But you are getting the live, unfiltered version of this podcast. And so this was just the only time we could do it. We had to go to practice in the morning. I had to come back and write some stuff. Steve had to cut audio and do all this other stuff. And then this is when we got on. So the good news is Christian and Bobby's show is 4 hours long. So we'll be done well before that. And also, there will be a podcast going out tomorrow morning that we have to edit and everything. So that's why we are recording now.
I guess, yeah, they're looking at us like we're competition now for sports talk. That's not the case at all.
No, the fact that anyone watches this is amazing. Here's the other one. Is Christian really that short? Dude looks tiny next to Steve, Bobby, etc. Well, I mean, he definitely looks small next to Bobby because Bobby's 6'3". Christian is a short man, but he's not as short as he probably looks when he's standing next to Bobby.
Yeah, that doesn't help for sure. And I'm 6'1", so
right. I'm 6 feet tall. Yeah.
So he's always saying we're like, the towers all around him. Sucks to be him, I guess.
Well, our producer, the producer on the show, Charlie Long, is 6'8".
Yeah, so he towers everybody.
You should see them standing next to each other. That's
What was amusing too is when we had obviously Zach Streif when he was the voice
also
of the
a giant person.
Yeah, standing next to him and Bobby for training camp videos for Christian was really brutal.
No doubt. What's the ADP of Ian Book? The average cut position of Ian Book. One thing about Ian Book, we can talk about this. We don't have to put it on the podcast. I put it in my notes. He didn't like a single team rep today. In practice. The last 2 days, he has gotten like 3 team reps total, and it was because Andy Dalton got his foot stepped on and had to come out. So Ian took over for like the next 2 reps. But yeah, Ian Book has not been involved in the team drills whatsoever.
We've seen enough in the preseason. We need to get these other guys some reps in practice. Thanks, Ian.
If you have to pick a defense starting lineup, what will be your 11? I'm not sure what this means. If we're talking the Saints,
defense starting lineup, who would you
this year? It would be that's too many names. I'm sorry. Tyron, Marcus, Paulson, Marshawn,
CJ.
No. DeMario.
No CJ?
Oh, you said CJ.
Yeah.
You said PJ. I'm sorry.
No.
DeMario, Werner, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Demarcus Davenport, Cam Jordan, David Onyemata, Malcolm Roach. That's my starting 11. All from memory. I can even tell you their numbers.
That sounds good to me. I mean, who did you have opposite of DeMario linebacker?
Pete Werner, number 20. Here, you want to play a game? Say a Saints player's name, and I'll tell you their number. This is how good I am at this.
Okay. Bradley Roby.
21.
Chase Hansen.
40.
Yeah, that's easy. We've been taking attendance with him. Let's see. What's a tough one? Vincent Gray.
35.
You on it, dude. You Eric Wilson.
58.
And I'll say, let's see. Who's a tough one? Sorensen.
25.
Last one I'll hit you with. Where is he? Josh Andrews.
Oh, 68?
You got it. Ding, ding, ding.
68? Yeah.
Winner.
Yeah, when you have to stare at that roster every day for 10 minutes, 15 minutes and try to figure out who everyone is. You get pretty
You've
good
won
at it.
an Odyssey cooling towel.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get into this. Here, Steve, why don't you bring us in for this third segment, and then just say, yeah, and then I'll kind of tee you up, or if you want to kind of just tease who your guy is going to be, and then I'll pop up your spotlight.
Gotcha. And you're calling this segment just spotlight players?
Yeah, the players we're watching, we're putting the spotlight on.
Gotcha.
We can do honorable mentions too if we want.
Sure.
But yeah.
Thanks for listening to Inside Black and Gold, coming back with another segment. This time, Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak, we are getting into our spotlight players for preseason game number 3, the finale before the real deal, Jeff. I cannot wait, honestly, for week 1, September 11th in Atlanta. And a guy that I am definitely anxious to see in this finale, a little more from a local product in Kirk Merritt.
No, that's the wrong one. Hold on. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
There it is. Kirk Merritt. He's a running back now, y'all. But he's not listed as a running back on the depth chart we just got. So
no, that hasn't been updated. Just a guy that, throughout camp, I think we've been taking notes on him, a guy who stood out, Destrehan product, so was really talked about there. But I thought it was interesting, obviously, that Green Bay game, they used him at the return specialist position, and that 59-yard return against the Packers kind of made some coaches and guys on the team go, maybe we could use him in that Ty Montgomery role on this team as a running back. And now we've been seeing him playing more that position than wide receiver at practices. Now, he started out, he said, as playing running back as a kid, 6 years old. So it's a position that's foreign to him at all. Nice size on him, 6'1", 214 pounds. And he just looks like a guy that belongs on this team to me, and definitely anxious to see how much run he gets in this finale, because I do think there's a shot that it might be a small one, but there is a shot he has at making this 53.
yeah, I think he definitely has a shot. I think he has a better shot now than he did as a wide receiver, just because of the depth of that room. But so I put out my roster projection this week after week 2 of the preseason, kind of heading into week 3, and I left him off, but I did kind of put him kind of right on the bubble at the running back position, because I think Tony Jones right now is that 4th running back that I think you have to keep. But if Kirk can come out and show that, he not only has the build of a running back, but he can produce like a running back and take plays out of the backfield and be that kind of plus receiver out of the backfield, because he has the receiver skills. I think he can supplant Tony, and it'll come down to whether he's useful enough on special teams, because I think Tony has also done well on special teams. So, both have been solid on kick returns. Both have been solid in special teams. So I think that it's a lot closer than it was previously, because I think Tony had really pulled ahead of Abram and obviously Devine, who was let go early in the week. So,
and I think Dwayne Washington being nicked up helped his cause too.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we have to consider is Dwayne has not been out there for practice at all this week. You'd like to think that he would be healthy come week 1, but if there's a question, and then that makes that RB3 spot even more valuable. Because if one of those two first, if Marker, Alvin go down, all of a sudden, that's the guy. So yeah, I think Kirk is really intriguing, and I'm looking forward to seeing him at running back. I assume they're going to give him a solid run there because he's been getting like live reps in team drills. So it's not like they're just testing it out. They believe that he can do that.
Yeah, and obviously I know, someone that the Who Dat Nation and all the local folks are looking out for. Like I said before, the Destrehan product, everybody likes that story.
Yes. And I think to some extent the Saints get annoyed that we keep bringing it up because, they're not going to keep him because he's from Destrehan. That is one thing that we need to understand, and the Saints want you to be aware of. It's like they don't care whether this is an LSU player, whether this is a Louisiana player, whether this guy's from Baton Rouge or Destrehan or whatever. They actually have a Baton Rouge guy in Malcolm Roach too. They're going to keep the best 53 or the 53 that they think gives them the best chance to win as many games as possible. And the feel-good story is not going to factor in. I'm sorry, it's just not. Now, would it be nice if they could keep a local kid around? Sure. But he's going to have to earn that spot independent of that. And I think that he's pretty close. I really do. And I'm looking forward to seeing him get a chance because he has flashed a lot throughout camp. And the entire time I've kind of in the back of my head been like, yeah, he looks good, but I just don't see a road for him at wide receiver. And now I think there is a possible road at running back. So hopefully he can take advantage of that.
Yeah, and the thing we talk about, whether you want to say versatility, multiplicity, he's definitely got that piece about him. And we know this Saints team obviously loves the fact that, the more you can do, the more valuable you are, obviously, to Dennis Allen, the offense, and the roster.
Okay, and speaking about value, we're going to go into my spotlight player, the guy who I think you should be taking a close look at. It's kind of a cop-out. We've already talked about him. But here is what he sounds like, and then we'll get into who he is.
A lot of discussion the last couple of days on how to say it, so Nephi.
Yep, it's Nephi.
Okay.
Is that something that gets mispronounced a lot?
Yeah, a lot of people go with Nephi. So
yeah.
Kind of roll with it, unless, I feel like I need to correct, but it's Nephi. If y'all can say it like that, but I'm cool with Nephi if you want to.
No, we've got it correct now.
I say it the right way, but I was definitely saying it the wrong way.
Yeah, I think everyone was, so I'm glad we got that sorted out.
You've been getting
That's him. That's Nephi. I feel so bad for him. Like we've all been saying his name wrong for like 3 weeks. And it's like, now it's like he's about to have a chance to make this roster and now we're all like, oh, what's your name?
Yeah. When Eric Wilson said it, I had to look it up too. Like, wait a minute. Did he say it wrong or have we been saying it wrong? And yeah, sure enough, when, you go looking at past YouTube videos of his highlights and you hear them saying Nephi Sewell, you're like, ooh, ouch.
Yeah. And I know we just talked about this on the last podcast. I'm not going to get too much into it, but we did finally get to talk to Nephi in person yesterday. So that would have been Tuesday. So, he's a very interesting option at linebacker. And I think he's going to be a guy to watch. Now, I pick him as my spotlight player, but I really think it's like you're spotlighting whoever looks the best at that will linebacker spot, and like who looks like they can cover, who looks like they can tackle, who's making plays, who's around the ball. And whether it's Nephi, whether it's Bostic, who he'd probably be at the mic, whether it's Chase Hansen, if he's out there, there are spots to be had. One of the big changes I made in my roster projection was at linebacker, and I dropped Caden Ellis, and I dropped well, let's see. I don't want to lie to you.
Bostic, right?
Hold on. Here it is. So the guys I'm keeping 6. I'm keeping DeMario Davis, Pete Werner, Caden Ellis, Nephi Sewell, Eric Wilson, Andrew Dowell. So as you can see, that drops Chase Hansen, who had been on there previously, and Zach Bond, a 3rd-round pick from 2 years ago, who I just don't see having done enough to make this roster. I really don't. And if some of these guys show up and ball out, then I don't see why you would cut Eric Wilson to keep Zach Bond around just because you drafted him. Like it's just you don't. He's a special teams player at best. And if you took away that 3rd-round tag, you would be like, if you just took away your 3rd-round tag on him and just stood him up next to the other guys in the room, I don't think you would be like, yeah, that's the guy we should keep, right? And so if your issue is a sunken investment, and that's the only reason you're keeping him around, then that's a problem, because I think that you get a lot more utility out of a guy like Nephi, who covers a lot better. He was a safety. He played safety in college. and then transition to linebacker. So he's got cover skills. Or a John Bostic, who has been in the league for 10 years and is a veteran and has that, he's a veteran presence in the locker room. Or Eric Wilson, who has forced 2 turnovers in 2 preseason games. So it's like, what have you done for me to keep you on the roster? And I think everyone has a claim to it other than Zach Ball.
Yeah, and like you mentioned just before when we were talking about Kirk Merritt, you're not going to keep him around just because he's a local product. This team's not going to keep Zach Ball around, I don't think, just because they invested that 3rd round pick in him. Totally agree on the fact that he's a special teams player, and that's just we have other needs right now at this linebacker spot than just a special teams guy. We just haven't seen it from Ball, and he's been given the opportunities.
Yeah, he's gotten his chances. Like it's not like we just don't know enough. Like we know what his ceiling is, I think, and I don't know. Like if you don't have a good reason to cut bait and you keep him around, that's fine. But I think that this is a team that has depth concerns, and it might be a situation where all these teams are cutting down to 53 on Tuesday. One of these spots might just be waiver claim A as like basically a holding spot. So whoever, the best linebacker you can find that got knocked off a roster, they're the option, So yeah, I just don't see Zach Bond being a guy you have to worry about cutting because he has not made it an issue, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think for Nephi, his main competition might be Eric Wilson, huh?
I mean, I have them both in there.
Okay.
I think his main competition would probably be Chase Hansen. Because I think Eric Wilson is going to be the backup kind of Mike.
And we know with Wilson, I mean, not with Hansen, I mean, the issue obviously is not the talent because this guy's been around this team since I think 2019. He cannot stay healthy for the life of him.
It's the health. Yeah, if I was kind of pegging like the matchups, I think it would be kind of Chase Hansen, Nephi, and maybe Caden. Now Caden would be more in the mic, and then I think it's Eric Wilson, Caden, and John.
Caden and the Sam too, huh?
Who?
Caden Ellis and the Sam.
Yeah. But you don't really need to keep a guy for Sam, right? That's just like if you can't be a Mike in this defense, then you're not going to be on the roster because you don't run that position out there. You play like 2% of your snaps out of that personnel. So I think that it's that backup kind of Mike spot is going to be Eric, Caden, or John Bostic.
Yeah, we've heard Dennis Allen definitely praise. That's a name he's mentioned a lot, I think, is Caden Ellis.
Yeah, I think they like Caden Ellis. I think he's a guy who they would put on the practice squad if they can. And I don't know. He's an effort guy. He's a special teams guy, and that's great. But I think there's more upside with Eric Wilson. And I think if you have to play them, if you have to start, you feel more comfortable about Eric Wilson. So that's why I'd keep him around. But that's why this is the spotlight position, because we're going to learn a lot about these guys. If one of them really goes and balls out, that could be what gets them on the roster. So that's why it's my spotlight position. While, spotlight position, spotlight player is Nephi, but it could be any of them.
Yeah, and not to bang on Zach Bond either, but we saw a guy like John Bostic, who, yes, he's been around the league for a little bit, but he showed up right away and made more of a difference than we've seen Zach Bond in his entire time in a black and gold uniform.
Yeah, he led the team in tackles. Yeah,
right.
I don't know if Zach actually. That's the weird thing is he came out last preseason and looked solid in that Ravens game, and then we just never heard from him again. So I don't know. Maybe he'll come out and just blow up and then make it so you can't cut him. But I don't know. Right now, I'm looking at Nephi, and I think that the team is looking at Nephi based on how they've been running him out there in reps. And so there's something to be said there. So I'd keep an eye on him and make sure you double check the pronunciation before you bring him up in any casual conversation.
I think now that it's been pointed out for everyone, it'll get ingrained. Although looking at it though, you want to say Nephi.
I've kind of trained myself out of it. But it's going to be one of those names. One of the reasons I want him to stay around is so it's going to be one of those names where every now and then you'll be like watching a Saints game and it'll be a weird broadcast crew and they'll say it wrong. You'll be like, yeah, It'll be
You
like
fools.
the Leo gif with the beer and the cigarette.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's why. So that's all I have on him. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? We can run some questions up here to fill the rest of the time, unless you had something specific.
No, that linebacker position we got into a little bit. I think that's going to be obviously a big one to watch in this preseason game. We heard Dennis Allen, talk about how there's still positions to be won on this team, and that linebacking spot's definitely one of them. I would say the wide receiver spot, which we highlighted before with Merritt / he plays there / running back, but the depth at wide receiver. The question about Traquan Smith, is he going to make this team? And there was a concern after he missed a practice the other day. Is he hurt right now? But we did see him at least return to the session today, and I'm sure he'll get some run in this preseason game too. But I definitely don't think his spot is locked in Traquan.
I think it is. I have a hard time seeing him missing the roster. And the main reason is the reason you brought him back is still valid, and that hasn't changed, which is he's going to be the blocking receiver, and he's going to do a lot of those things that people don't want to do. And I see him kind of like Austin Carr. I don't know. Like I like Dejon Dixon a lot. I just don't think that he's going to do enough as a special teams player to make that roster. And like DA called him out on it earlier in camp, and I don't think he did anything in that second preseason game that was particularly impressive. And he kind of was absent in the passing game too, and I really like Dejon. I think he's going to be a solid pro, but I think it's a year on the practice squad for him personally. But we'll see what happens. I just think Trey, the comfortability is there. They trust him, and Jameis trusts him. Pete Carmichael trusts him, and I think it just makes sense. But that said, you might not keep 6 receivers. So if you decide that you're only going to keep 5, then that's Trey. That's gone. So maybe that way.
But and I know we brought it up a little bit before too. Obviously the Dejon Dixon is a great local story as well. But that just because you're from New Orleans, went to Nichols doesn't keep you on this roster. I am curious, and I know we've kind of talked about it a little off the podcast about, will one of these guys like a Dixon or a Merritt, if they don't make it, end up being claimed somewhere else by another team? And it'll be curious because I feel like both of them have done at least enough in this camp to make an NFL roster. I just don't know if other teams are quite as locked in and know about them.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. Here's one question from Kyle Brister. Was Trevor running with first team today? Yes. Trevor Penning has been running with the first team all week because James Hurst has been out nursing a foot injury. There was a report, I think Nick Underhill had a report that he was in a walking boot. I think that's one of those things that kind of, it's a mystery.
We did see Hurst today, though, finally. We
saw him today, and he was not in a boot. I think walking boots are one of those things where it's like they're going to want you to wear it if there is any sort of chance that like you could hurt something further if like you hit it on something. Like it's not, a lot of times you'll think, oh, we must have a broken bone or something. But I think in that case, it's just, you'll heal it faster if you're not constantly touching your leg and foot. So you think that's probably what it was, because he was walking around, he was moving fine. So I don't think it's anything that should keep too long, but it has been good, nice, valuable reps for Trevor. And I think I'd still like to see James Hurst be that week 1 starter, but this has been really valuable time for Trevor to kind of get into a rhythm. And I think he has. I think he's looked solid this week, and he hasn't gotten. I think he might have gotten into a fight today, but nothing crazy.
No, him and Taco seem to have a little war of words with each other, and they did stop practice for a little bit, and we heard Dennis Allen chewing everybody out. But yeah, I think it's all been positive with Trevor Penning. I know the expectations are high, obviously, for this kid drafted 19th overall, and I'm very hopeful though that Hurst is able to still go week 1, because I don't want to see left tackle Trevor Penning week 1 in Atlanta, with Jameis Winston still dealing with, coming back from knee surgery, dealing with a foot that he just came back from. You want to maximize his protection as well. And I just think Hurst will be a more confident and, I guess, consistent player week 1.
Yeah, I think that's what I've kind of felt like throughout, and I don't think that's changed. But I do think that Trevor, if you asked me before camp how far along and how close Trevor might be to that starting role, I would have pegged him to be a lot further away than he is right now. While I don't want him out there week 1, I think that, he wouldn't go out there and get embarrassed. He would struggle, but I think he would compete, which if you asked me before camp, I would have told you that he would get embarrassed if he went out there week 1. And so, I think he's come along faster than maybe definitely I expected, and maybe a lot of people. But here's one from Kyle, who's got all the jokes today. What's the over-under on Ian fumbling from under center this game? I don't know if over-under works there because you're talking about one or none, but I think if I was putting a bet on it, I would put it about, minus 200. I think it's likely based on what we've seen, but I'd hope that he's got that sorted out, considering he's a quarterback, and it's just something you have to do is take the ball from the center. And while it's, he didn't take a lot of snaps from under center, and it's kind of a weird thing that no one ever talks about, is like, yeah, you got to kind of reach up that guy's butt and pull the ball out, but you got to do it. You got to do it. And, you got to really get in there, as Bobby says. I was actually talking to Bobby about him. He's like, just got to get in there. Just got to go for it.
I guess we could have totally probably filled the whole 15-minute segment, honestly, on just banging on Book and people just, sounding off on poor Ian Book. And we kind of talked about this a little bit at practice too. It's like, we're there criticizing these guys, and we'll never know what it's like or have that ability to even make it to an NFL roster. Obviously,
I am not a professional athlete. I just talk about
surprise. You just catch touchdowns, though.
I did catch a touchdown in the Superdome. Was not particularly impressive looking, but it happened. But yeah, I mean, Ian's gonna get his his final reps on this active roster, at least for this season. And like I said last week, I hope he does better. I hope he does improve. I hope he looks like he's learning and getting better. And, maybe down the road he can be a guy you count on as the backup, because I think that's probably the ceiling. I think we had talked about it. I can't remember who I was talking about it with. It might have been you. I think he's a guy who might be a coach someday. Like he kind of like Sean Payton was a quarterback who just, he wasn't ever good enough to play like high level NFL snaps, obviously, but I think he went to the same college as Tony Romo. Eastern Washington, maybe? Is that right?
Who's that?
Sean Payton.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Eastern Illinois, right?
Illinois? I know it was the same college as Tony Romo.
Let's see.
I gotta double check this.
Yeah, Eastern Illinois.
Eastern Illinois. I knew it was in Eastern. But yeah, he was an Eastern Illinois guy. He went undrafted. He was in the league for a period of time, but he just never was that guy. But he was a great coach, right? And so maybe that's the path for Ian, because I think he does approach the game the right way. But I just don't know if he has it from a physical perspective. But hey, we've seen crazier things. If Case Keenum can find his way as a starting NFL quarterback, there are weirder things, but he's not the guy this year. So I'm not going to give him any more grief.
It's funny you're bringing up Peyton too, and what happens if he gets back into coaching next year, ends up with the team that is coming to the Dome Friday in the preseason finale in the Chargers. Could an Ian Book end up, next year in LA on this Chargers roster with Sean Payton? Just some of those little quirks and nuances, that could happen. I don't know. I think Ian's got the good mind for the game. We just haven't seen that really translate onto the field so much. And I do think, man, it was one thing that really stood out, I thought, in those Green Bay practices too, is just how small he was compared to the rest of the guys on the field. And I think it is an issue.
Yeah. It does not do him any favors. There's one other point that I'll make, which Bookie Brown here. People pick up all of our players. We cut because they know we draft well. I don't know if it's that, but I do think that one thing that definitely happens is when the Saints cut special teamers, other teams, their ears perk up and they're like, oh, okay. Or when a special teams player comes available, it's not a coincidence that, Justin Hardy gets scooped up by the Jets, right? And Craig Robertson also went to the Jets. Divine Azigbo ends up on the Broncos, right? Aesop Winston gets picked up immediately by the Browns. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a product of the Saints have established a really good special teams kind of pipeline where they've gotten really good at identifying special teams contributors, developing special teams contributors. They coach the position well, they emphasize the position. So you have a lot of people who can do a lot of things when they end up on, waivers, teams are like, oh man, okay, well, that's a shortcut for us because we don't have to teach that. They already have it. And not all teams are good at that. So that's why you see a player like Aesop Winston just immediately getting claimed by the Browns, right? And so I say all that as we asked Dennis today. I'm surprised I don't do that more often. We asked Dennis today whether we might see Rashid Shaheed in the preseason finale. And it was he kind of brushed it off kind of the same way he did with Jameis, where he's like, I'm not going to tell you who's playing, blah, blah, blah. And that's weird to me because you'd think under normal circumstances, you would be like, okay, yeah, we want to get a look at this guy. We want to see if he's the return guy. So maybe next year we have a better idea of what we have in him, even though he probably doesn't have a space on this year's roster. But I almost think we've seen enough from Rashid in practice. He caught a touchdown in drills today, and I think he's looked really good. He's got very good. He's like very smooth. He transitions well. He looks a lot like Chris Olave out there. Obviously, he doesn't have the pedigree of a Chris Olave. You're not expecting anything nearly what you expect from Chris Olave, but the way they move and the way they transition and the fluidity in their hips, it's very impressive. So I think you've almost seen enough from him to know what you can hope for next year. And the only thing that's going to happen if you send him out there and have him return a couple kicks is then other teams are going to have tape on this guy returning kicks. And they might be like, well, we need a returner. We know the Saints are really good at preparing returners. They're good at finding returners. Yeah, we're going to claim this guy. And so I think that might be why you might not put him out there, even though this is an opportunity for him to showcase it, because they want to keep him around and he's not hurt. So they can't stash him on IR and pretend he's hurt. And so I think that's probably what you're seeing.
Totally agree with that. Trying to slow play the hand there, not show too much on Shaheed, where, like you said, what we've seen has been pretty impressive with him, but why put that out there for the rest of the NFL teams to see? And as a guy that, they can pick up because he's not going to make this team, which is stacked at the special team slot. So yeah, I definitely think it's kind of, the Saints trying to be like, not trying to bring attention to him. Definitely.
Right. And one way to make sure you bring attention to somebody is to send him out there and have him look really good on kick returns. So that's why I think you're going to see Kirk and Tony returning kicks, maybe Marquez. Although, I don't think you're going to see Deontay. I think he's another guy who you don't need to see. And it's like, why have him taking a hit? He doesn't have to. But yeah. And I also think the next year, when you kind of get to the end of this season and this road, you're going to have a really hard time convincing me that this team's best option is to overpay a kick returner in a league where you do not return that many kicks. And that's what Deontay is. And I think that he probably will get paid somewhere, but this team feels like it's capable of finding the next Deontay, right? So that's what I think Rashid is, and that's what I think they have in him, and they just want to make sure that he doesn't get picked up by anybody else. But all that said, it wouldn't shock me if he does play, and then I sound like I'm full of it. But that's kind of how it's reading to me.
I did think it was interesting. There was a point in Green Bay where I saw Jameis Winston leave the field with Shaheed, and they kind of went into the indoor facility were you away from everybody? And I'm assuming, just working on some reps, getting some snaps together while they weren't taking part in anything on the field.
Okay.
I
believe you.
It was just one of
I
those
wasn't
notes,
there. I don't
you
really
take
not
down.
much I can say about it. There's a lot of things. We could come up with a lot of theories for what they were doing in there. And the snacking on cheese curds, playing
No
tic-tac-toe.
more cheese curds.
Yeah, maybe some Connect 4, maybe some Yahtzee. You never know. Yahtzee's a good time. Maybe some chess. Maybe these are chess guys.
Definitely the snack time sounds more accurate.
Yes, I think I would be snacking around. But okay, I think that's enough. I think we've gotten 90 minutes into this thing. We can cut it off. Do you want to lead us out?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another edition of Inside Black and Gold. We want you to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to hit the like button as well. Give us a 5-star review would be preferred. If not 5 stars, please give us some info on what you want us to bring you, or what you don't like and need us to change. Hopefully we'll be, coming to you with some interesting takes after this final preseason matchup. Curious to see who are the guys that do end up playing one, and end up also who ends up standing out from this bunch and ends up making this 53-man roster.
Yes. Well, weren't you supposed to lead us out? What are you doing?
I thought like you'd hit out the park with a Bobby Bon Louise Lejean or something.
Oh, okay. Peace, y'all. I'll just cut that back down. Yeah, okay. Anyway.
There you go.
Good stuff. All right, and thanks for everyone who's been watching on YouTube. As always appreciate having y'all in here. Make sure to follow Steve at Steve Geller WWL. I'm over at Jeff_Nowak. You can see it on the screen there. It's good stuff. And yeah, we're gonna have to get creative with how we get the next podcast out to y'all, because we might have to record it on Sundays to post it on Monday, because we want to get an episode in after the game and before cut down, which is 3 p.m. on Tuesday. But we want to make sure there's enough time, so we probably want to get it out by Monday. So maybe Sunday is the next time we'll get an episode recorded. Maybe Saturday. Maybe if we have sometime Saturday, that would work too. But I do want to make sure that we don't record and then post something that's all of a sudden that's already dated by the time we get it finally done. So keep a lookout for something on Monday, I think would be the best option. And then from there, I expect we'll start shifting into the Monday, Wednesday, Friday kind of schedule when we go to 3 episodes a week. So yeah, thanks as always for everyone in here. Good stuff.
Now you can go back to listening to sports talk.
Oh, yes. 5 o'clock. Still got 3 hours of sports talk. So go have a good time over with Bobby and Christian on WWL AM 870 FM 1053.com and the Odyssey app.
Deuce McAllister coming up at 5:20. He's always great.
He?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen for Deuce. He's always, I can never find him, but he's always got the good, the scoop. So listen to him.
It's the benefit of being a former player. I think his fingerprint still works on the doors there. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Mine does not.
Never has.
All right. Peace, y'all.